Across the Fields by Susan Price. A brazier held the fire in the centre of the hut. The men, their bodies blackened with a coating of sweat, water and coal dust, crowded close, shivering and trying to wipe themselves dry. "Never mind, Christmas tomorrow," one of them shouted. Christmas was the only day in the whole year the mine didn't work. There was a soft rap on the door. The nearest man opened it. "John," he called, "thy little sister's here. Come to walk home with thee, so they don't get scared." The girl was about 13. On her head was a man's old cap, with a thick tartan shawl folded over it and wrapped tightly about her body. "Have they been paid?" she asked. "Mother wants thee to fetch the meat for our Christmas dinner." John nodded. "They walk here on their own? In the dark?" "Did they meet our Grace?" said a man at the brazier. "Our Grace'll be walking tonight, with a dead white face and a long wet hair, and her eyes staring, and her hands reaching out for whoever her can find." The miners laughed. Everyone in the neighbourhood knew the story of Grace, the gypsy girl who had drowned herself in the flooded clay pit, and now, so people said, walked over the fields at night, trying to find and drown others. The marketplace was lit by flaring white gas lamps, with pitch-black shadows between pools of light. They made their way to the butcher's stalls, where blood had collected in puddles between the cobbles. John was pointing to a large goose hanging by its legs. I'll give thee 5 shilling. The stallholder took the bird down and began wrapping it in newspaper. Once they were out of town, they were faced with a long, long road home. "I'm not walking all the way round," John said, turning off the road and striking out across the rough ground of the field. "Wait for me." Even walking across the fields, thought Emily, was better than meeting Grace by yourself, or even Padfoot, the ghost dog whom you saw when you were going to die. "We'll soon be home," said John. "Have a mince pie afore we go to bed." They didn't see the man coming. His voice barked out in the darkness. "Evening." "Evening," John said, friendly and unafraid. "Happy Christmas." "Oh," said the man, his deep voice grumbling through the dark. "It ain't Christmas yet. Not till the last stroke of midnight. Where they going?" "Home," John said. "What's their hurry? Why don't they come to the wrestling match? They could win a prize, strong lad like thee." "There's prizes?" John asked. "There's prizes," said the stranger, and Emily didn't like the way he said it, as if there were other things he wasn't saying. The stranger left the path and struck off through the long, crunching, frozen grass of the field. John followed him, and Emily, clutching at John's belt, followed John. When they were far from the path, they heard a noise. The sound of voices, clamouring together, as they'd clamoured in the marketplace. But here the sound had a frozen note as it faded and was lost in the open fields. There was light ahead, shining out of the darkness like a jewel. John picked up his heels, and Emily had to run to stay up with him. "Here we be," called the stranger. "Here's a lad to give us a bout. Here's a lad who'll bet his wages, his goose, and his heart and soul." A dark young man, as tall as John but broader, stood squarely between them and the fire. His face was in deep shadow and couldn't be seen. He started to take off his jacket, and as he did so he said, "For the goose." John grinned and passed the goose to Emily. He took off his jacket and draped it around her shoulders. She hugged the goose tight to her. John had to win. He had to. The two men had wrapped their arms around each other and were trying to crush the breath from each other's ribs while struggling to trip each other with their feet. It was unbearable to watch. Emily found herself looking instead at the faces in the crowd. She'd seen that woman somewhere before. She jumped as a shout went up all around her. John was on the ground. He got up, and again they wrapped their arms around each other. There was another face in the crowd, a man's. She knew him too, but couldn't think of his name. There was a shout. John was on the ground again. John was losing. Oh, John, she thought. How could they win when they were so tired? She felt a tugging at the goose in her arms. I won, said John's opponent, and he wasn't even out of breath. Emily let him take the goose. She remembered now where she'd seen the woman. A neighbour who had died. And the man, he had worked down the pit with John and had been killed by a roof fall. Dead. All dead. We're in company with the dead. John had got to his feet. Again, I'll win the goose back. The dead people moved closer. The fire flared, and its red light glowed over the dark young man's face. Emily saw John start with shock. Tom Ridgely, he cried. I'm dead, Tom. Bet me thy heart and soul, said Tom. If I win, I'll live in thee, and thou won't live no more. Then we'll wrestle, John said. But here's the wager. If I lose, me heart and soul. But if I win, the little wench goes home with the goose. This time Emily watched. Once, twice, 3 times her brother was thrown. The match was lost. How else could it have ended? All the dead turned to Emily. Thou hasn't won me. John lost, so they've won him, heart and soul, but they've not won me. She ran to where John half sat, half lay on the ground. She took his jacket from around her own shoulders and put it around his. I can't wrestle, she said, but I can riddle. I'll ask thee a riddle. If thou can answer it, thou shall ask me one. First one who can't answer is the loser. But what's the wager? Asked the dead man. If I lose, thou win us both, said Emily. If I win, thou lose us both. Win all, lose all. You're on, said Tom Ridgely. In a hall as white as milk, lined with skin as soft as silk, in a fountain crystal clear, a golden apple does appear. No doors there are to this stronghold, but thieves break in and steal the gold. What is it? That's an old one, said Tom, and the answer's known to all of us here. It's an egg. What's old, we know. Here's my riddle. How quickly can you travel round the world? That is hard, thought Emily. But then the answer jumped into her head. If you get up with the sun and keep up with the sun, you can travel all round the world in one day, like the sun does. And here's my riddle. I'd better make it a good one, she thought. A new one, because the dead know all the old riddles. Hurry, hurry! Think of the answer first, then make a riddle to fit it. She thought so quickly that when she spoke the beginning she had no idea how it would end. I nothing fear but morning bird song. My heart is still, but still it longs. By day I am gone, by night I show clear. Now riddle me rear, what be I? To her relief, Tom Rugeley didn't answer. A new riddle, he said. All around the dead whispered together. Does thee give up? Emily asked. Is it too hard? It's the moon, said Tom. No. Then it's the stars, said another of the dead. No. And on went the guessing game, until midnight was past, and there came the coldest, darkest time of the night, when Emily and John shivered together despite the shawl, and the deep cold set John coughing again. They went on trying until came the first morning cock call, the first cock crow of Christmas Day. And on Christmas Day, and the 12 days of Christmas, ghosts and the dead and witches have no power. As the cock crowed a second time, the crowd drew back, and as the cock crowed a third time, they turned and ran away across the dark field, running for their graves in all the little churchyards round about. John put his arms around Emily and hugged her tight. "Where have they been?" their mother shouted as they lifted the latch to the little house. "I thought the bogeyman had thee." John and Emily looked at each other. Then John handed the goose over. At the foot of the stairs, John whispered to Emily, "I think I know the answer. Is it a ghost?" Emily grinned and nodded and went on up the stairs. "If you want to hide something," John said, "put it in full view." Afterwards they had roast goose for Christmas dinner and mince pies. And when John walked to work in the dark early the next morning, he didn't go across the fields, even though the 12 days of Christmas still had 11 days to run. Across the Fields was by Susan Price and read by me, Anna Keaveney. The story was abridged for radio by Penny Lester, and the producer was Nandita Ghosh.